Will there be animals in heaven? You know, after studying close to 1,500 cases of near-death experience, the most asked question I get is, will my pet be in heaven? Who cares about aunts and uncles and all those other people? Just will my pet be there? I'm John Burke, author of the New York Times bestseller, Imagine Heaven and Imagine the God of Heaven, and this is the Imagine Heaven podcast.
I think what got me, there were so many creatures that I never knew that existed.
Beautiful fish, different kinds of aquatic life and all of that. And the life, whatever, crabs, fish, whatever, they were moving and doing their thing.
This broke through that dark abyss, broke right through, just tore open right above me. I really believe it was Jesus. I couldn't see anything, but what I saw was a horse.
What animals or creatures will be in heaven, if any? And will our pets be there? You know, some say no, they won't. Others say yes. What's the truth? And why is this such a big deal? You know, because it is a big deal to a lot of people, I've found. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, we love our pets. We get attached to our pets. You know, I think about TJ, our family dog that the kids, my kids grew up with. TJ died just a few years ago. And, it was hard because for 17 years, he was our dog and everybody was attached to him. You know, the kids got him when they were very little. They even named him. We asked him, what do you want to name this cute little puppy? What do you want to name him? Which you got to be careful asking children to name things. And we should have thought about it, knowing my daughter wanted to name her younger brother Trombomb. And she was very upset that we decided to name him Justin. Trombomb would have been up there competing with Elon, some of the names he's given his kids, right? But we went with Justin. And we should have known when we asked if you want to name the dog. She did not like the name Jimmy, which is the name that the SPCA had given our dog. But she was okay with Timmy. And Justin, my son, wanted Jimmy, really liked Jimmy. We didn't like either because we were like, we don't want to name a dog the names of our friends' kids, right? So we compromised. Timmy Jimmy is the dog's name, or TJ for short. So TJ is who my kids grew up with, 17 years, loved by all of us. You know, in his last years, I would carry him down the stairs at night and in the morning because he couldn't even walk down the stairs to get in the backyard to go to the bathroom. But he was a great dog and we loved him. Will we ever see him again? Or was TJ just a gift from God for this time on the earth? That's what I want to take a look at, because I think the question actually gets at some of the character of God. What's God like? And also, what is heaven actually? What is it really? We're going to look at what near-death experiencers have commonly said and how it aligns or doesn't with the Bible. I also am going to talk about why some theologians say, sorry, animals don't have souls, so your pets won't be in heaven. But let's just start at the start. First, will there be any animals in heaven? I want you to listen to what Dean Braxton discovered that actually changed his belief system. You know, Dean was a Christian at the time that he died of sepsis for an hour and 45 minutes and then was resuscitated. At the time, he told me he didn't think there would be animals in heaven. But listen to what he discovered.
There was animals, peoples, everything you would have here on the planet in the sense of life. You know, it's just that everything was alive. There was nothing dead, and everything was intelligent. It was past anything that I would believe that it would be like. I think what got me, there were so many creatures that I never knew that existed. I came back driven to look up in mostly underwater shows, those type of things, to see if I could see some of the creatures that they would see down in the deep that were there in heaven. I remember the first year or year and a half that was driven for me to try to find as many of those animals on this planet that were there in heaven. But they were more beautiful than you could imagine. There's no decay. There's no fear there. So if there was something that you were fearful on the planet with, you wouldn't be fearful of it. So in describing, there's bears there, there's lions there, there's sheep there. Everything you could think of that's on this planet is there too.
I mean, think about this. God is very creative, right? I mean, on planet Earth, our scientists think there are probably 7 million species of creature and created, animal and all that. And I mean, we haven't discovered all of them yet. There are all kinds of creatures. And interestingly, Dean saw animals that he knew here on Earth, but he also saw creatures that looked really different. He said, kind of like when you see those deep sea underwater films of these just kind of bizarre looking creatures, he said that's what he was looking at in heaven. So God is incredibly creative. And there are all kinds of animals and creatures, according to the Bible and according to near-death experiencers. Now, what we miss is that heaven is actually life continued on. It's not life to death, it's life to life, but new life, life without disease and decay and the defects of our broken, sin-stained world. And that's a part of, the message of Scripture. The Bible tells us that our turning away from God has affected all of the creation, but before the fall, before humans rebelled and turned against God, it says this in Genesis chapter 1, says God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, small animals, able to produce offspring of the same kind, and God saw it was good. See, when God created the animals, this is before the fall. This is before death, before sin and death. He sees the animals he created and he says, it's good. He created it good. And because this is before death entered the picture, then apparently he created them to last. So if that's the case, death now affects everything on earth for a time. But why wouldn't animals live on past death if people do? And I think the Bible indicates this. In fact, in the Old Testament, in the book of 2 Kings, we see the prophet Elisha is being attacked and his servant is terrified, but Elisha's calm. And Elisha knows that God is protecting them in the unseen realm. So look at what he asks. He says, "Don't be afraid," the prophet Elijah answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And then Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." And then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around. I know it sounds weird, but stick with me, because what we see is both the prophet Elisha and also another prophet named Elijah, confusing, I know, but in 2 Kings book, they see horses in the unseen realm. Is that true? Are there horses in the unseen realm? Well, listen, as Jim Woodford, a commercial airline pilot I interviewed, who had never read the Bible before he had his near-death experience. He had never even prayed. And if you watch some of the earlier episodes, I had some of Jim's story. As he was dying, he cries out to God for forgiveness. And listen as he describes the undeserved love and goodness that God shows toward him as he gets to see the animals he loves the most.
We came back down and resumed the walking, and we came to a split rail fence like you'd see on any farm, here or around America. Again, God tailors the experience to your earthly life. And I've always loved horses. I grew up with them. My grandfather logged with horses. So I've been around horses since I was a baby. And as we speak, we have horses at home. And the guardian said, "James, look," and he made a motion, and behind a group of trees came 3 of the most magnificent horses I'd ever seen. And they trotted up to the gate, and the grass lit up as they ran across. It was incredibly beautiful. And this magnificent white horse comes up to the gate and nickers at me and comes close and leans over. And I was just stunned. And of course, I'd never read the Bible, so I didn't know that when Jesus comes back, he'll be riding a white horse, but leading these 3 horses. because there was a palomino and a bay. They came right up to the gate, and they stood there and looked at me, and it was as if they were thanking me for loving their kind on earth. And I couldn't resist. I put my hand through to stroke its silken body, and it was a being of light. And when I pulled my hand back, the light of its body clung to my hand till I got it about 10 inches away, and then let go and went back into the body of the horse. And that's what I call the sticky love of God. God's love wants to cling to you.
Very interesting, isn't it? So think about this. So Jim sees these 3 horses, and they're real. They're real horses, but they're also made of light, like Jim said. Now, it's fascinating because in Old Testament days, the only light was light from fire. And yet that's exactly the way Elisha and the servant described what they saw, these horses and chariots of fire or of light all around Elisha. So they're beings of light, but does that mean that they're intangible? No, you can touch them, you can ride them, it's real. Jim said they're horses like on earth. He recognized a palomino and a bay, and the white one was an Arabian. He said it had silken, soft fur to the touch, so they're tangible. You can touch them, even though they're made of light. But this light, again, is the light and love of God that infuses everything and gives life to everything in heaven, just like we've been talking about and have heard in other episodes. Now, it sounds weird, but it's not weird, really, if you think about it. Because, my arm is solid, right? You can touch it. You could touch my arm. But if you really think about it, my arm is just made up of millions of atoms. What's an atom? Well, scientists tell us that atoms are electrons orbiting around a proton and a neutron at the nucleus, but really the atoms are just in an orbital cloud. It's like an electromagnetic field. And they tell us that 99.9% of each of our atoms is just empty space. So really, I'm just mostly empty space. and yet you can touch me. I'm mainly just made up of energy states. And yet when we touch, we can feel something. But what we're actually feeling, atoms don't actually touch other atoms. What you're feeling is my right hand's atoms repelling my left hand's atoms. So when we're touching, we're really repelling each other, which is an interesting thought. I don't know, that's just a random thought, but think about it. Maybe that's, whereas our electromagnetic force is kind of the what holds us all together and what is tangible in our physical world, this force of the light and love of God is the underlying force that holds everything together there. But it's still tangible. You can feel the horses. You can ride the horses. Jesus comes riding a horse, not only as Jim mentioned, but it's also in several places in the book of Revelation. And remember, Jesus, when he was resurrected, he was able to come back and see 500 of his followers, his 12 disciples as well. They touched him, he ate fish with them, and apparently he can ride horses on the other side as well. So here's what John, Jesus' disciple, said. He records in Revelation 19, when he saw heaven. He said, "I saw heaven opened, and a white horse was standing there. Its rider was named Faithful and True, for he judges fairly and wages a righteous war. His eyes were like flames of fire. His title was the Word of God. The armies of heaven, dressed in the finest of pure white linen, followed him on white horses." So apparently, there's not just one horse, there are many horses. And then it says, on his robe at his thigh was written this title, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And of course, this is the title of Jesus. This is Jesus on this white horse. Now, what's wild is, like Jim said, he didn't know the Bible when he saw that, but neither did Yenh. Yenh and her family are from Laos. They came to the U.S. and, Yenh, their family was Buddhist. So Yenh always heard her parents say, Jesus is the American God. We have our own gods. We have our ancestral gods. So she always thought, Jesus is just the God of the Americans, which of course, if you've been watching this podcast, know the God of all people and all nations. But that's what she always heard. I'm going to feature Yen's story in an upcoming episode on hellish near-death experiences, because that's how hers started. It's not how it ended, but it started there. And I won't give too much away, but she had a bad relationship with her family. It led her into deep despair. She ended up thinking to herself, there is no God. And God, even if you do exist, I'd rather be in hell than go through this hell on earth. And she ended up overdosing on medications, trying to kill herself. As she was dying, she realized, as so many near-death experiencers do, they realize, oh my gosh, hell is real, heaven is real, God is real. And she realized she was so wrong, and she cries out to God to forgive her. Yet listen who comes to rescue this Buddhist agnostic woman who cries to God for forgiveness, and who comes into this dark pit and rescues her. Watch.
I knew I was not in my body because I felt being sucked. I felt like I left my body and I was sucked through the mattress, and now I'm on this other journey. On this other journey. So I'm noticing.
And you were dropping?
Yes. Very fast, very quick, rapid, lightning speed. Like everything was happening just so fast. And so I drop into this black pit is how I explain it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm back in hell. Like I remember thinking I was going to hell just a day or two ago. And now I'm back there because the familiar blackness. Even though I wasn't a Christian at that time, something inside me said, don't partner with that lie. And so I knew I had to say the opposite, even though I didn't even know I believed it, so I started just to come back and say, no, God does love me. No, God does care about me. I just knew I had to say the opposite. And so as I was saying, and just my thought or whatever was coming out of me to fight against these lies of God does love me, he does care about me. As I was saying that, right above me, this bright light broke through that dark abyss, broke right through, like just tore open right above me. And I really believe it was Jesus. I couldn't see anything, but what I saw was a horse. I saw a white horse, and I believe it was Jesus riding on this horse. It was just this bright light that I couldn't see a face.
You saw a person on the horse?
Yes.
But it was a brilliant light that was coming out of him?
I was just shocked that something was able to break through like that. And exactly like your friend, like swooped me up, and it just rescued me from that pit.
I mean, isn't this wild? This young Buddhist girl cries out to God, and she says Jesus comes and rescues her on a white horse. And again, she knew nothing about Jesus, or very little, and she didn't know for sure that Revelation says that Jesus comes to rescue on a white horse in the end. And yet that's what she saw. That's what she claimed she saw. And as many do, she ended up becoming a follower of Jesus in time. Question is, are these horses in the book of Revelation, are they literal or are they symbolic? If you read it, it seems like both. So yes, there are literal horses in the life to come. And I hope that's what you're starting to get, is it's life, just like life we have here. But also in the book of Revelation, it talks about these 4 horses, a green, a red, a black, a white, with these riders on it. And I think what those are talking about symbolic battles and events. So It's literal, yes, but also some of it's symbolic. But there are real horses in heaven and all kinds of other animals, just as near-death experiencers tell us, but also as the Bible indicates. You know, John, Jesus' disciple, was taken to heaven, and he sees an eagle crying out. He says in Revelation 8, as I watched, I heard an eagle that was flying in midair. You know, Rebecca, the near-death experiencer that I write about in Imagine Heaven and Imagine the God of Heaven from the 1890s, okay, before near-death experiences were even a known thing. But she had one, and she talks about there in heaven watching these children playing a game with birds that looked like they were playing a game with them. In Isaiah chapter 11, the Jewish prophet Isaiah, and similarly in Revelation 21, mentions all kinds of animals that are restored and living in harmony in God's new coming kingdom.